A single spark lifts off the dark grass at the edge of a summer field, hangs in the warm air for the length of one slow breath, and fades. Then another, then 100 more, rising and dimming across the meadow like the slow exhalations of the night itself. Somewhere out past the reeds, the black water of a lagoon is breaking into pale blue fire wherever a wave folds over, and far below the reach of any sunlight, a small creature lifts a glowing lantern into the crushing dark and waits, patient as a star. This is a night made of living light, not the borrowed light of the moon, not the harsh light of any lamp, but a cool radiance that animals make from inside their own bodies, gentle enough to read by and faint enough to vanish if you blink. You do not need to hold any of this. You do not need to memorize a single name or number, or chase these images as they float by. Let your mind soften and grow slow, the way the eye relaxes in a dim room until shapes begin to glow on their own. Let each idea settle wherever it likes and let the rest fall away into the dark, unhurried. What stays with you will stay because it wishes to. There is nothing to do here but rest and breathe and let a cool light carry you down. Let your shoulders loosen. Let the cool night air move slowly in and slowly out until your body feels as weightless as a spark drifting over a field with nowhere it needs to be. So let the field come closer now, where the first of these small lights are blinking on among the grass. On certain warm nights in the river valleys of Southeast Asia, whole trees fill with fireflies that pulse together as one. Thousands of separate insects, each blinking on its own rhythm at dusk, slowly fall into step, until an entire mangrove flashes and goes dark, breathing light in perfect unison across the riverbank. No conductor arranges this. Each firefly simply watches its neighbours and nudges its own timing a fraction closer to theirs, and from that endless small adjustment a single shared pulse emerges, the way a crowd's scattered clapping can slide all by itself into one rhythm. To stand on the bank and watch a tree breathe with light is to see order arrive without anyone in charge of it, a calm reminder that harmony can rise from nothing more than countless small creatures attending closely to one another. Only a few kinds of firefly in all the world have learned this gift of flashing as one, and people travel great distances and wait in patient silence to see it, gathering at the edge of a forest on the right warm nights of the year. For a few weeks the trees pulse together, then the season passes, the insects' brief adult lives end, and the synchrony fades until the following year calls it forth again. And the light each one carries is stranger and gentler than any flame. The glow of a firefly is almost entirely cold. When a candle burns, most of its energy escapes as heat, and only a sliver becomes light. But the firefly has perfected the opposite trick. Nearly all the energy it spends becomes pure visible glow, with scarcely any warmth at all, so the insect can hold its lantern against the delicate tissue of its own abdomen all night and never be burned. It is one of the most efficient lights ever found, made not in a furnace, but in a cool chemical whisper. There is something deeply soothing in that idea. Light without fire, brightness without heat, a small lamp that cost the body almost nothing to keep lit. And before the firefly ever learned to fly, it learned to glow. Long before it lifts into the warm dusk, the firefly spends its early life as a pale larva crawling through damp soil and leaf litter, and even then it shines. These glowing grubs are sometimes called glowworms, though they are not worms at all, and their steady light is thought to be a quiet warning, a signal in the dark that tells any hungry passerby they would taste unpleasant and are best left alone. So the glow that reads as romance is, for the young, a way of saying, "Leave me in peace." Picture them down among the cool roots, each carrying a small constant ember through the underground night, untroubled, simply waiting to grow. That same patient light spills out across the open sea in numbers too vast to imagine. When a wave breaks on certain shores and shatters into blue sparks, the fire in the water is alive. The glow comes from dinoflagellates, single-celled drifters so small that millions could rest in a teaspoon of seawater, and each one flashes for less than a heartbeat when the water around it is jostled. Alone, a single cell is far too faint to notice. But where the warm currents gather them in their billions, the lightest disturbance sets off a chain of cold blue flame, so that a swimmer's hand trails sparks, a fish flees inside a comet's tail, and every footstep on the wet sand blooms with light and goes dark again behind you. A whole ocean of creatures too small to see, answering your touch with light. And sometimes those countless tiny lamps brighten the sea so completely that the water itself seems to glow from within. The flash of each tiny cell is set off by motion itself, an answer to being touched. Inside the cell, the light is held in countless minute packets, kept dark and ready, and when the water around the creature is bent and sheared by a passing wave or a swimming fish, the cell feels that motion and, in an instant, fires its light. It is why the glow follows your hand, why it blooms only where the water moves, why a still pool stays dark until something stirs it. The creature cannot see, yet it feels the faintest disturbance and answers with light, releasing its glow in the very moment it is pressed. There may be a quiet purpose in it. A flash at the touch of a hungry grazer can startle it, or call down something larger to drive it off, so the light is a kind of alarm raised at the speed of a heartbeat. To know that the sea's blue fire is the touch of the water made visible is to feel that every glowing wave is, in a way, the ocean gently flinching into light. One of the most common makers of that blue wave fire has a name as lovely as its glow, sea sparkle. It is a round, almost transparent drifter, larger than most of its single-celled kin, yet still no bigger than a speck, and it floats in such numbers near many coasts that by day it can tint the water a faint pinkish hue, and by night set it ablaze with blue at the slightest touch. Unlike its relatives, it does not gather its own energy from sunlight but drifts and feeds, a tiny balloon of living jelly, flashing cold light whenever a wave or a passing fish disturbs it. Much of the glowing surf that delights swimmers on warm nights is the work of this one small creature, blooming in countless multitudes just beneath the surface. To know that so much of the sea's blue fire comes from a single floating speck called sea sparkle is to feel the ocean's wonders grow somehow closer and more tender. The grandest light on the water is made by the smallest of things. There are rare nights, far out where no coastline interrupts the horizon, when sailors have reported the entire sea turning a steady milky white, glowing palely to the edge of sight as though the ocean had swallowed the moon. These milky seas can stretch across thousands of square miles, large enough to be seen from satellites in space, and they are thought to be caused by uncountable luminous bacteria glowing all at once across the surface, not in flashes but as one continuous ghostly sheen. To sail through such a sea would feel like crossing a field of pale snow at midnight, the water below as bright and still as the sky should be. It is one of the strangest, most mysterious sights the ocean offers, a vast cold light with no source you could ever point to. And far beneath that glowing surface, in water no light from above can reach, other creatures carry their own small lamps through the dark. In the deep ocean, where the sun has never once shone, a fish hangs motionless and dangles a single glowing bead in front of its own mouth. This is the anglerfish, and the little lantern swaying on a slender stalk above its head is a lure. Lit by glowing bacteria the fish keeps inside it. Smaller creatures drawn through the endless black toward the only spark of light for miles swim straight toward that pale blue glow without ever sensing the shadow waiting behind it. The anglerfish does not chase. It simply shines and waits and lets the dark do the rest. There is a strange calm in that patience, a creature that has turned its own light into a quiet act of stillness. And light grows not only in the cold, deep water, but in the warm dark of a forest floor. Deep in an old woodland at night, a fallen log can glow with a faint green light that seeps from the wood itself. This is foxfire, the cool luminescence of certain fungi whose fine threads spread unseen through rotting timber, and on damp, warm nights the decaying bark can shine just brightly enough to mark a path through the trees. People once tucked pieces of glowing wood into their pockets as living torches, or used it to read the time on a dark hillside, a lamp that needed no flame and never burned out as long as the wood stayed moist. The glow is fussy and faint, brightest on warm, wet nights when the fungus is most alive, fading if the wood dries or the cold deepens, so that a log might shine one evening and stand dark the next. Soldiers and travellers of old are said to have marked the edges of paths with it, or fixed a glowing chip to a cap, a faint green guide that never needed lighting and never gave off heat. Imagine walking a forest where the dead trees glimmer faintly green at your feet, the whole floor breathing a green phosphorescence. That same green light travels too through the open water like a slow constellation. In the middle layers of the sea, a delicate, transparent creature pulses past, ringed with shimmering light that runs along its body in rippling bands. This is a comb jelly, named for the rows of tiny beating combs that propel it smoothly through the water, and many kinds can light up with a faint inner glow when they are disturbed. The flickering colours that usually run along their sides come from sunlight bending through those moving combs, but their true bioluminescence is a separate, deeper blue kindled from within. It is worth knowing that the famous shifting rainbow of a comb jelly and its true glow are two different things. The rolling colours are only daylight scattered by the beating combs, a passing shimmer, while the real living light is made within and appears mainly in the dark when the creature is touched. Some of these jellies that live deep down are coloured a deep blood red, a shade that vanishes completely in the deep where red light cannot reach, so that they drift as good as invisible, their hidden glow the only thing that might give them away. They hang like slow lanterns, barely steering, carried by currents through a darkness so complete that their own faint light is the only event for miles. And some glowing creatures do not float at all, but rest quietly on the seafloor like a buried coal. On the muddy floor of shallow coastal waters, a small flat creature shaped like a leaf or a heart presses down into the sediment, and when something brushes against it, waves of greenish light sweep across its surface. This is the sea pansy, a colony of tiny animals living together as one flattened body, and the light it makes ripples outward from the point of contact like rings spreading on a pond. Each touch sends a slow, luminous wave across the whole colony, a shared response from hundreds of joined creatures acting as a single glowing thing. It rests there on the dark floor, unhurried, lighting up only to answer the lightest disturbance, then dimming back into stillness. And one of the most beautiful partnerships in all the sea hides its glow beneath the body of a tiny squid. Buried in the warm sand of a shallow Pacific lagoon by day, a thumb-sized squid rises each night to hunt, and the underside of its small body glows with a downward light. This is the bobtail squid, and the light is not its own. Inside a special pocket on its belly it keeps a colony of glowing bacteria, feeding and sheltering them, and in return they shine, casting a glow downward that exactly erases the squid's shadow against the faintly moonlit water above. A hunter looking up from below sees no dark shape blotting out the surface, only more light, and the little squid slips by unseen. Each dawn it releases most of its glowing partners back into the sea and grows a fresh colony the next night, an endless nightly exchange between two lives. By day it sleeps buried in the sand, drawing a blanket of grains over itself with a sticky coat, until only its eyes peer out, and only when darkness comes does it rise to hunt with its hidden lantern lit. This little squid even keeps its own inner clock by the rising and setting of the sun, tending and dimming its glowing partners in step with the day, a tiny life and its tiny lights turning together with the turning of the world. To make oneself invisible not by hiding in shadow but by wearing light, that is a kind of magic the sea worked out long before anyone thought to wonder at it. The squid's borrowed glow comes from one of the quietest reactions in all of nature, and to understand it is to find it even more soothing. Nearly all living light is made from a single elegant pairing, a molecule called luciferin, which holds the potential to glow, and an enzyme called luciferase, which coaxes that glow out into the dark. When the two meet in the presence of oxygen, the luciferase oxidizes the luciferin and lifts it into an excited, restless state, and as it sinks back down to calm it, releases its extra energy not as heat, but as a single faint particle of light. The names come from the old Latin word for light bringer. There is no spark, no friction, no fire, only molecules trading energy in the cold, the way a held breath is finally peacefully let go. Almost every creature in this glowing world runs on some version of that same patient chemistry, and yet, remarkably, they did not inherit it from one another. Living light is so useful that life has invented it again and again, entirely from scratch. Scientists who trace these glows back through the branches of the tree of life find that bioluminescence has evolved independently, dozens of separate times, in fireflies and fish, in fungi and squid and tiny drifting plankton, each lineage stumbling upon its own way to make light without ever sharing the secret. The fish in the deep did not learn it from the firefly in the field. Each discovered the same trick alone, in its own corner of the dark, which tells you how often the living world arrives at the same calm answer when the answer is good enough. That so many different creatures separated by oceans and ages all found their way to the same cold glow is a strange and comforting kind of unity, written in light across the whole web of life. And nowhere is that light more common than in the place that seems the least likely. The deep open ocean is the largest living space on Earth, and in much of it, making light is not the exception but the rule. Below the sunlit surface, in the vast cold middle waters and on down toward the seafloor, the great majority of the animals carry some form of glow, by many estimates well over half, and in some layers far more. In that endless dark, where the last trace of daylight gives out perhaps a few hundred meters down, light becomes one of the few ways to find food, to find a mate, to startle a predator, or to vanish. So the deep is not the lightless void it first appears. It is faintly sparkling, threaded everywhere with tiny living lamps, a darkness more full of stars than the sky, most of its living light shining cobalt and blue-green where almost no one will ever see it. Among the colours of that hidden glow, one shade rules nearly all the rest. The light of the deep sea is overwhelmingly blue. There is a simple reason. Of all the colours of sunlight, blue travels furthest through water, reaching deepest before it fades, and so the eyes of deep creatures evolve to be exquisitely sensitive to blue and to little else. To make a light that travels far and that others can see, the safest choice is to glow blue as well. The result is an ocean dark that, when it shines almost entirely in cool sapphire and pale turquoise, a single calming hue spread across thousands of miles of black water. Reds and yellows are rare luxuries down there, glimmers of which a few rare creatures hold, but the everyday light of the deep is a tranquil blue, the exact colour of stillness, and one of the most graceful users of that blue light wears it not to be seen, but to disappear. High in the dim twilight zone, where a little blue daylight still filters down from above, a thin silvery fish hangs in the water with rows of tiny lights along its belly, glowing faintly downward. This is counter-illumination, and it is one of the most elegant tricks in the sea. From below, any creature is normally a dark silhouette against the faint glow of the surface, an easy target, but this fish lights its underside to precisely the same brightness as the water overhead, erasing its own shadow until it simply melts into the background light. It even adjusts the glow as the daylight shifts, dimming at dusk, brightening at noon, always matching, always hidden in plain sight. The hatchetfish wears another disguise as well. Its sides are flattened and silvered like a pair of mirrors, so that seen from the side it reflects the dim surrounding water and all but vanishes, while its belly lights match the glow from above. Hidden from below by its lights and from the side by its mirrors, it becomes one of the hardest things in the sea to see. To survive by becoming the same brightness as the sea, neither brighter nor darker, is a kind of perfect stillness. The hatchetfish has done it for ages, and so does the little bobtail squid, each one disappearing into a careful balance of light. Lower still, in the long migrating clouds of small fish that rise and fall through the ocean each day, swim the lanternfish, whose name they have surely earned. Their flanks are studded with neat patterns of glowing organs, arranged in lines and clusters as precise as the markings on a uniform, and these patterns differ from one kind of lanternfish to the next. In the dark, a fish can recognise its own species, and perhaps its own sex, simply by the constellation of lights another fish wears, reading one another the way you might read the shape of a familiar window lit at night. Lanternfish are among the most abundant fish in the whole world, swimming in countless billions through the middle deep, and every night many of them rise toward the surface to feed and sink again by dawn. So vast are these gathered multitudes that when ships first swept the deep with sound, the echoes bounced back off the dense living layer, as if from a full sea floor, a phantom bottom that rose toward the surface each night and sank again by day, until people realised they were hearing not the ocean floor at all, but countless small fish moving as one. An entire living tide of small lights, breathing up and down the water column with the turning of the day. As they sink back into the cold, the colours of the deep grow rarer and stranger. There is a fish in the deep that breaks the great blue rule, and it does so in secret. The dragonfish carries, just beneath its eye, a small organ that glows not blue, but deep red, a colour almost nothing else down there can even see. This is its private searchlight. Because nearly every other deep creature is blind to red, the dragonfish can sweep that crimson beam across the water like an infrared lamp, lighting up its prey while remaining completely invisible to it, hunting in a colour the rest of the ocean cannot perceive. It is as if one creature alone learned to see in the dark using a light no one else knows is there. There is something almost tender about that solitude, a fish moving through the black with its own private red glow, illuminating a world it shares with no one. And to make a red so rare, it had to bend its own blue light through a hidden filter, a small marvel of the deep. Some of these deep hunters carry their light right inside their mouths. Certain dragonfish and their relatives have glowing spots lining the floor of the mouth, or set deep in the throat, so that when the jaws open in the dark, the lure shines from within, drawing curious prey toward a faint light that leads only deeper inside. Other fish dangle a luminous barbel from the chin, a long glowing thread tipped with light that they wave slowly through the black like bait on a line, twitching it just enough to mimic a small living thing. Each is a patient angler in its own right, lighting a tiny beacon and waiting in stillness for the dark to deliver a meal. To them, light is not warmth or comfort, but a lure cast into the void, glowing faintly, asking the darkness to come closer. And one creature of the deep uses its glow not to draw life in, but to push danger away. These deep hunters carry a hidden secret in their bellies, a darkness inside the dark. When a fish of the deep swallows glowing prey, that meal might go on shining inside it, lighting the hunter from within and giving it away to anything watching, and so some of these fish have grown stomachs of the deepest black, walls so perfectly dark that not a glimmer of a swallowed glow can escape. A creature may eat a mouthful of living light and remain utterly invisible, the glow sealed away behind a lining black as the surrounding sea. Their teeth, too, can be clear as glass, so that not even a tooth catches and reflects a stray spark. Everything about them is built to hide light, even the light of what they have eaten, so that they may go on moving unseen through the dark. To imagine a fish gliding silently through the deep, with a small swallowed star sealed in a stomach of pure black, is to glimpse how thoroughly this hidden world is shaped, down to the smallest detail, by light and its careful absence. When a small drifting jelly far down in the water is seized in the dark, it does not struggle in silence. Instead, it bursts into a spinning pinwheel of blue light, a wheel of flashes turning round and round its body, and the effect has earned it the name burglar alarm. The flashing jelly is not trying to frighten the creature that caught it. It is trying to summon a bigger one. The sudden whirl of light is a beacon visible across a great stretch of dark water, an advertisement that calls in a larger predator, who may then attack the attacker and, in the confusion, set the jelly free. A small creature with no defense of its own turns its captor into bait simply by becoming briefly, brilliantly bright. It is a lesson the deep teaches over and over, that light itself can be a kind of voice, sending a message no sound could carry through the heavy water. And some of the loveliest of these living lights belong to creatures most people will never hear named. Drifting through the cold mid-water is a small swimming worm, delicate and feathery, that paddles along on rows of fine bristled paddles called parapodia. This is the Polychaete tomopteris, nearly transparent and beautiful in motion, and when it is alarmed it does something almost no other animal in the sea can do. It releases a glow of pure yellow light. In an ocean where nearly all living light is blue, a flash of gold is so unusual that scientists still puzzle over what it is for. Some think the worm sheds these tiny yellow sparks from the tips of its paddles as glowing decoys, leaving a trail of light behind to confuse a hunter while the worm itself slips away into the dark. Picture it, a small gold lantern paddling through a blue night, scattering little flecks of gold as it goes. The sea keeps surprises like this folded into its deepest layers, rare colours glowing where almost no eye will catch them, and one tiny creature makes a glow so bright that people once gathered it by the handful. Another small sea worm keeps a calendar so precise that people can predict its glow to the minute. In the warm shallows around certain islands, the females of a bristleworm rise to the surface on just the right nights, a few days after the full moon, and a set number of minutes after the sun has gone down, and begin to glow a vivid greenish light, swimming in tight luminous circles as they release their eggs. The smaller males, seeing the spinning glow, dart in trailing their own brief sparks, and for a short while the dark water swirls with circling lights before all of them sink again into the calm. So exact is their timing that long ago, watchers on ships described a moving glow on the water on the very nights this worm performs, a green light keeping perfect time with the moon and the setting sun. To imagine a creature that carries so faithful a clock inside it, glowing on schedule night after appointed night, is to feel how deeply the rhythms of the sky are written into even the smallest lives. The sea keeps its appointments in light. In the warm coastal waters of Japan there lives a creature barely larger than a grain of rice, a tiny crustacean inside a little hinged shell called the sea firefly. When disturbed, it spits a small cloud of glowing blue chemicals into the water, a puff of cold light that hangs and slowly fades, and on dark nights the wet sand can sparkle where the waves have stranded them. The light is so reliable and so pure that during a long-ago war, soldiers are said to have crushed dried sea fireflies in their palms and added a drop of water. The cold blue glow just bright enough to read a map by without giving their position away. Even dried and stored for years, the tiny creature's chemistry waits, ready to shine again at the touch of water, a light folded up and kept like a seed. To hold a faint blue glow in the cup of your hand, made by something almost too small to see, is to feel how generously this world hides its wonders in the smallest places. The creature does not glow upon its own body at all. It sends its light out into the water, mixing the two halves of its glowing chemistry into the sea, so that the light blooms in the open water and slowly dims, a small cloud of cold blue hanging where the creature was. This is part of why a pinch of the dried powder, wetted in the palm, glows so readily, the chemistry needing only water and air to wake. Scientists treasure this little creature's light for how pure and steady it is, a reliable blue glow that has helped them learn the very rules by which all living light is made. A blue cloud kindling in the dark water, then dimming back to nothing, where a creature too small to see passed by. And in the cold, deep water off the same coast lives a far larger maker of blue light, one that rises once a year in such numbers that the shore itself seems to catch fire. In the deep bay waters along one stretch of the Japanese coast lives a tiny squid no longer than a finger. its small body studded with hundreds of light organs that shine a deep blue, with 3 larger lamps set at the tips of one pair of arms that can flash as bright as waved flares. By day it stays far down, 400 meters or more below the surface, but each spring the females rise toward the shallows in their millions to lay their eggs, and the bay fills with blue light. When the tide and the nets strand them on the sand, the whole beach glows a faint electric blue, and people come in the dark before dawn just to stand among that shining. To picture a single small squid lit with hundreds of blue points, then to picture millions of them turning a whole bay luminous on a spring night, is to see how the sea can take the smallest lamp and multiply it into a wonder. And far across the sea from those glowing crustaceans, in the warm shallows of the Caribbean, other tiny crustaceans put on a courtship display that turns the night water into a slow constellation. On certain evenings, a few nights after the full moon, male ostracods rise from the seafloor and release strings of glowing blue droplets as they swim upward, leaving behind perfect ladders of light hanging in the dark water. Each species lays out its own pattern, its own spacing and timing of sparks, so that a female can read in the arrangement of glowing beads exactly which suitor is rising to meet her. The whole reef shimmers with these climbing strands of light, dozens of luminous staircases drawn and redrawn in the black water, a wordless and luminous language of love. To witness it is to see the simplest of creatures composing something achingly beautiful out of nothing but light and patience, asking only to be chosen. And the sea is not the only place where small creatures string the dark with their lights. In the dripping dark of certain caves, the ceiling glows with what looks like a private night sky. Thousands of tiny blue-green points hanging motionless overhead. These are glowworms, the larvae of a small fly, and each one is a patient predator that has turned its hunger into a thing of beauty. The glowworm spins fine silken threads, like dewy fishing lines, and hangs them down from its perch on the cave roof, then lights its own body to lure small flying insects toward the glow. The insects, mistaking the points of light for stars or open sky, fly upward and tangle in the sticky lines, and the glowworm reels in its catch. Each hanging thread is beaded with tiny droplets of glue that catch the cave's faint light like dew on a spider's web. Dozens of glistening lines dropping from a single glowing larva. And the hungrier the glowworm, the brighter it shines, for an empty stomach makes it glow more strongly to lure more prey, so that the brightest points on the cave ceiling are often the ones in greatest need. To stand in such a cave and look up is to feel the boundary between earth and sky dissolve, a whole heaven of blue-green living lights glittering above you in absolute silence, each one a tiny creature simply waiting in the dark. And on the floors of forests too, the small things glow with their own steady fire. Among the leaf litter of warm forest crawls a beetle larva with a row of glowing spots along each side of its body and a single bright lamp at its head, and when it lights both colours at once it earns its name, the railroad worm. The spots along its flanks glow a faint green, like the lit windows of a passing night train, while the lamp at its head can shine a deep, surprising red. It is one of the only creatures on land able to make red light, and it may switch the headlamp on to see its way, or to warn off a predator while the green windows glow steadily down its length. Imagine a tiny train of light easing through the dark undergrowth, green windows and a red headlamp carrying nothing, going nowhere, simply glowing as it goes. The living world is full of these small private lights that almost no one is awake to see. It is one of the very few creatures on land able to make 2 different colours of light at once. The green of its flanks and the red of its head, a rare pairing in all of nature, and the green and the red are made by slightly different chemistry within the same small body. The red headlamp may help it move unseen, for most of the small things it hunts cannot perceive red at all, while the green windows along its sides warn larger creatures away. To carry 2 colours of cold light in one tiny frame is a small marvel, glowing red and green among the fallen leaves, and some glowing beetles can fly, carrying their lamps up into the warm night air. In the tropics of the Americas, click beetles take to the air with two glowing spots set like headlights on the back of the body, just behind the head, shining a steady green-gold light as they cruise through the dark. Unlike the blinking firefly, these beetles often glow continuously, and a single one held in the hand can cast enough light to make out the lines on your own palm. People once gathered them and kept them in small cages, or pinned them to their clothing as living jewellery, a steady moving light that needed neither flame nor oil. When such a beetle flies low over the grass, its two steady lamps dipping and rising, it looks for all the world like a tiny lantern carried by an unseen hand. There is a deep gentleness in a light that simply stays lit, neither flashing nor fading, just a calm, constant glow moving slowly through the warm dark. These beetles can also glow from the underside of the body when they take to the air, a third light that joins the two on their backs, so that a flying one trails a slow-moving constellation through the night. Long ago, people in the warm lands where they live gathered them by the handful to brighten their homes, tucking a few into a small gourd or a fold of cloth, a living lamp that asked for nothing but a little air and a leaf to eat. And on certain mountainsides, even the slow and humble millipede joins this fellowship of light. High in the dark hills of California lives a small millipede that glows an eerie, steady greenish blue along the length of its many-segmented body, lighting up the night soil as it creeps slowly along. Unlike most glowing creatures, it does not light up to find a mate or to lure a meal. Its glow is a warning, a quiet announcement that its body carries a bitter defense and is not worth eating, so that hunters in the dark learn to leave the glowing thing alone. It is light used purely as a word of caution, a luminous, please do not, shining through the cool mountain night. Picture it inching along the forest floor under the stars, glowing greenish blue to no one, simply asking to be passed by in peace. The forms this living light takes are endless, and each one answers a need as old as the dark itself. Among the damp stones and old leaves of certain gardens, a slender centipede leaves a faint glowing trail as it hurries through the night. A few kinds of these long, many-legged hunters give off a faint luminous slime when they're disturbed, smearing a pale glow across the soil and stones they cross, a thin line of cold light marking where they have passed. The glow may startle a predator, or it may simply be a side effect of the chemistry of their defense, but on a dark, warm night it can leave a garden faintly written over with glowing tracks. Picture one weaving between the stems, a brief luminous thread unspooling behind it and fading into the dark. Even among the smallest crawling creatures of the soil, the living light finds its way, glowing for a moment in the hidden corners of an ordinary garden. There is, in the warm forests of one corner of the world, a single kind of land snail that glows, the only one of all its many cousins known to do so. It carries a small light near the front of its body, and as a young snail it can pulse this glow on and off, a tiny blinking lamp creeping slowly through the leaf litter on its single muscular foot. Why this one snail among thousands should have found its way to living light, when not one of its relatives glows at all, is a quiet puzzle that no one has fully solved. But the image is a sweet one, a small glowing snail creeping unhurried across the dark forest floor, carrying its little light at the pace of the slowest, most patient creature imaginable. The living glow turns up in the most unexpected places, even at the tip of a wandering snail, shining greenish with nowhere in particular to be. Back beneath the waves, an entire fish carries a flashlight beneath each eye and can switch it on and off at will. The flashlight fish lives near coral reefs in deeper, darker water, and below each eye it bears a bean-shaped organ packed with glowing bacteria that shine a steady blue. But the fish can choose when to glow. A flap of dark skin rolls up over each light like an eyelid, blinking the glow on and off so the fish flickers as it swims. It uses these blinks to find food in the dark, to signal to others of its kind, and to confuse a predator, suddenly going dark and darting away while the hunter chases the memory of a light. a creature wearing 2 lamps it can cover at a whim, writing messages in flashes across the reef at night. And not all reef lights blink. Some glow with a slow and steady patience. There is a small round reef fish, plated in heavy scales like a living pine cone that carries 2 tiny glowing patches at the corners of its lower jaw. This is the pine cone fish, and the cold light at its chin, made by glowing bacteria, shines forward into the dark water as it hovers among the rocks at night. The light helps draw in the tiny shrimp and plankton it feeds on, a small beacon that brings dinner toward its mouth. Slow and rounded and unhurried, armoured in golden scales edged with black, it moves through the night reef like a small lantern with fins, its glow an invitation rather than a hunter's trap. To see one is to be reminded that even among the rocks, even in shallow familiar water, the dark is faintly lit by creatures going calmly about the business of being alive. And some of the strangest light in the sea is the kind that does not glow at all, but answers the glow with colour. If you carry a blue light down to a coral reef at night, the reef can light up in answer, blazing back in greens and oranges and reds. This is fluorescence, a close cousin of bioluminescence. The corals do not make their own light, but they soak up the blue and re-emit it in warmer colours, so that under the right glow, a reef becomes a garden of cold fire. Many corals and many fish and other reef creatures carry these fluorescent pigments in their tissues, and what looks plain and pale by day can hide a hidden palette that only the right light reveals. The deep ocean glows, the shallow reef answers. Picture diving into a black sea with a single blue lamp, and watching the whole reef bloom into colours you never suspected were there, waiting silently inside the coral for the right light to call them out. The world keeps its hidden brightness folded just beneath the surface of things, and the loveliest glowing partnerships of all are the ones 2 lives build together. It is only the female anglerfish who carries that glowing lantern in the deep, and the story of her tiny mate is one of the strangest tendernesses in the sea. The males of these deep anglers are a small fraction of her size, sometimes scarcely larger than a fingertip, and they carry no lure of their own. They wander through the vast dark with one task, to find a glowing female before their brief strength gives out. When at last a male finds her faint light in all that blackness, he holds on and never lets go, and in some kinds the 2 slowly fuse, his body merging with hers until they share a single life, her lantern lighting the dark for them both. It is a hard and lonely search ending in an unbreakable closeness, a tiny wanderer guided home by a single light across an ocean of dark. There is something moving in that, a glow that is, above all else, a way of being found. The light of the anglerfish, the flashlight fish, and the little bobtail squid is not truly their own. It belongs to the bacteria they carry, and the bargain between them is one of the kindest in nature. The host animal builds a special pocket, feeds the bacteria, and shelters them from the open sea. The bacteria, packed close in their millions, glow. Neither could do alone what the 2 accomplish together. A young bobtail squid is born without its light, and must gather the right glowing bacteria from the seawater around it within its first days of life, sorting the helpful from the harmless until its tiny lantern is full. 2 utterly different forms of life, finding each other in the vast water and agreeing to share a glow. There is a quiet tenderness in that, a light that exists only because 2 creatures chose, in their wordless way, to keep each other close. And the bacteria themselves only shine when there are enough of them to matter. A single glowing bacterium gives off no light at all, and there is a beautiful reason why it waits. Each cell releases a trickle of a signalling chemical into the water around it, and each cell can sense how much of that chemical is present. When the bacteria are few and scattered, the signal stays faint and the cells stay dark, for one lone glow would be a waste. But as they multiply and crowd together inside the squid's lantern, the signal builds until it crosses a threshold, and then, all at once, every cell switches its light on together. This is called quorum sensing, and it means the bacteria are, in their own simple way, taking a vote. glowing only when their numbers are great enough to be seen, a community that lights up only when it is whole, that a colony of the simplest living things can wait and count itself and shine in unison is a thought to rest in, the breath slowing as the light grows. And these same patient bacteria can float free in the open sea and brighten it for miles. The bacteria that light the bobtail squid have cousins that float freely through the ocean, and when conditions gather them together, they can make the water itself glow. These are the same kinds of bacteria thought to be behind the rare milky seas, those vast pale glows that stretch to the horizon, and they may switch on their light for a curious reason. A glowing patch of water is more likely to be eaten by a fish, and inside the warm, food-rich gut of a fish is exactly where these bacteria thrive. So the bacteria may glow in order to be swallowed, trading a moment of light for a comfortable new home. It is a strange logic, a light that is really an invitation, riding the dark sea waiting to be accepted. The ocean is full of such quiet arrangements, each creature's glow folded into the lives of others, and the cold fire in rotting wood plays its own patient game with the forest. The green glow of foxfire, that cool light seeping from old logs, is made by certain mushrooms, and it shines from their fine threads and sometimes from the mushrooms themselves, glowing steadily through the forest night. Scientists have come to think this glow is no accident. By lighting up in the dark, the fungus may attract insects, who land on it and wander away carrying its spores, helping the fungus spread to new wood. Some of these glowing mushrooms even brighten and dim on a daily rhythm, shining most strongly in the dead of night, as if keeping their own clock, timing their glow for the hours when the insects they wish to attract are most likely to come. A mushroom that lights a small green lamp at midnight to call in tiny couriers for its spores. The forest is alive with these slow strategies, each glow a message sent out into the dark. There are forests where, after warm rain, the ground and the fallen branches come alive with these glowing fungi, dotting the dark with green constellations. In parts of the world, certain mushrooms shine brightly enough that you could find your way by them, a scatter of pale green stars laid out across the leaf litter and clinging to the bark of dead trees. One kind, fittingly, has earned the name of a mushroom that glows like a jack-o'-lantern, its gills shining a faint and steady green when the night is dark enough and the eyes have had time to adjust. To walk such a forest is to feel that the boundary between earth and sky has gone hazy, the ground glittering underfoot as though the stars had settled down to rest among the roots. The glow of these mushrooms is often easy to miss, faint enough that you must let your eyes adjust to the full dark before it appears, swelling slowly out of the blackness as the last memory of daylight drains from your sight. Many a wanderer has passed a glowing log 100 times by day and never guessed that, on a moonless night, it still shines. The whole world, it seems, wants to glow, given the right hour and the right quiet dark, and even the humble earthworm in a few rare places joins in. Of all the many thousands of kinds of mushroom in the world, only a small number make light, scarcely more than 100 known, and every single one of them glows the same shade of green. Scattered across distant forests and separated by oceans, these glowing fungi all settled on the same shade, a green close to the colour the eyes of night insects see most easily, as though each had arrived at the same answer. The green of foxfire is, in this way, a colour chosen again and again by life. People have marvelled at this glow for a very long time, far longer than they understood it. Thinkers in the ancient world wrote of a cold light that shone from damp, rotting wood, a glow that gave off no heat and burned nothing, and they puzzled over it, as people still do. To know that this same green light has been drawing wondering eyes for thousands of years is to feel a long, calm thread running back through time, the foxfire glowing patiently in the dark of every age. In a handful of regions there are earthworms that glow, leaving a faint luminous slime behind them as they move through the dark soil. When one is disturbed, it may release a glowing fluid from its body, a faint bluish light smeared across the earth, and on certain damp nights a garden can show the pale glowing tracks where these worms have passed. Why a creature that spends its life in lightless soil should make light at all is still something of a quiet mystery. Perhaps a way to startle a digging predator, perhaps something else entirely. But the image lingers, of a glowing thread of life moving slowly through the black underground, lighting its own small tunnel for a moment before the soil swallows the glow again. The living light reaches even here, into the deepest, quietest dark beneath your feet, asking nothing, simply shining where almost nothing ever sees. And down in the sea once more, whole families of small swimmers glow as they go. The middle waters of the ocean are thick with tiny swimming creatures called copepods, among the most numerous animals on Earth, and many of them carry their own faint glow. When one is jostled in the dark, it releases a small spark or trails a thread of light, a flicker meant to startle a hunter or to mark the path of its escape. There are so many of these little glowing specks that the deep sea shimmers with them, a fine sparkling rain that fills the water in every direction, set off by the smallest movement. A passing fish leaves a wake of tiny lights. A current stirs a faint blue glitter that fades as quickly as it came. To imagine that water, alive with countless small sparks at the lightest touch, is to picture a darkness more like a snow globe than a void, endlessly luminous, and those same tiny lights, gathered in their multitudes near certain shores, have made some places famous for their glow. There are a few sheltered bays in the world where the glowing plankton grows so thick that the water lights up at every touch, night after night, and people travel far to drift through them in the dark. In these rare lagoons, warm and calm and rich in the tiny dinner flagellates that flash when disturbed, a paddle stroke trails liquid blue fire, a fish darts past inside a glowing comet, and a hand dipped into the water comes up dripping with cold light. The brightest of these bays glow so reliably that they are protected as natural treasures, kept dark and undisturbed so their light can go on shining. They are delicate, these glowing waters, easily dimmed by too much light or too many visitors, or the smallest change in the warm still conditions the plankton need, and some bays that once blazed have grown faint, reminders that such fragile wonders must be cared for tenderly. Where they are guarded well, the lagoons shine on, brightest on the darkest, calmest nights. To float in such a place on a moonless night, the stars above and the water below both alight, is to lose track of which way is up, suspended between two skies full of light. Few sights in the world settle the mind so completely as that doubled darkness, glowing blue above and below. And the sea offers this same gift, in fleeting form to anyone who swims at the right hour. Even far from those famous bays, on the right warm night, an ordinary swim can turn magical when the plankton are blooming. A swimmer moving slowly through dark coastal water may find their every motion edged in faint blue light, their arms trailing glowing ribbons, droplets falling from their fingers like sparks, the whole body wrapped in a luminous blue outline. Surfers riding a night wave have watched the curling water light up around them, the lip of the wave glowing as it breaks. Footprints on the wet sand can glow and fade behind a midnight walker. The light is always there, sleeping in the water, waiting only for the touch that wakes it. There is something profoundly reassuring in that, a quiet brightness held just beneath the surface of the ordinary, ready to bloom for anyone who moves softly enough to call it out. And the sea has stranger lights yet, carried by creatures shaped like nothing you have ever seen. Drifting in the open ocean is a long, gelatinous creature made of many smaller bodies joined into one, called a siphonophore, and some of them glow with extraordinary lures. These colonial drifters can stretch astonishingly long, longer than a great whale, a delicate chain of cooperating parts trailing through the deep, and certain kinds dangle glowing red lures that they twitch and flick like a fishing line to draw small fish toward them. In an ocean where almost nothing makes or sees red, a glowing red lure is a patient trap, mimicking the small flickering creatures that fish like to eat, luring them to a colony they never sense. To picture one is to picture a living curtain of pale lights easing through the black water, gentle and slow and impossibly long, lighting tiny beacons along its length. The deep keeps inventing new shapes for light, each one stranger than the last, and some glowing creatures release their light into the water and simply leave it behind. There floats through the warm open sea a hollow glowing tube, sometimes long enough to swim inside, made of thousands of tiny creatures living together as one. This is a colony whose name means fire passage, a translucent cylinder open at one end, built of countless small animals joined side by side, each filtering the water and each able to glow. When light or a touch reaches one of them, it shines, and its glow can ripple to its neighbours, so that a wave of blue-green light runs the whole length of the floating tube. Some grow so large that, long ago, swimmers told of glowing columns in the water big enough to pass an arm through, pulsing gently with light. To imagine that slow luminous tube easing through the dark sea, its thousands of tiny makers all shining in unison, is to see once more how the ocean builds its grandest lights out of the very smallest lives gathered close. A single translucent creature, made of multitudes, glowing as it goes. When certain deep-sea creatures are attacked in the dark, they do not flash on their own bodies at all. Instead, they eject a glowing cloud into the water, a luminous smokescreen that hangs and swirls where they were a moment before, while the creature itself slips away unseen into the surrounding black. Some shrimp spew a bright spray of glowing fluid from their mouths, dazzling a predator with a burst of cold light. Certain deep squid, unable to use the ink that shallow squid rely on in the lightless deep, release a cloud of glowing mucus instead. The hunter is left grasping at a fading ghost of light while its meal vanishes into the dark. There is a kind of gentle cleverness in escaping not by hiding, but by leaving a glowing decoy behind, a parting gift of light to confuse the dark. The deep sea has turned even the act of fleeing into something luminous, and one curious deep creature lights up the very tips of the limbs it hunts with. In the cold mid-water lives a small, soft-bodied octopus, whose arms are lined with the round suckers most octopuses use to grip and taste. But these suckers do something no others do. They glow. Tiny lights ring the suckers along each arm, turning the limbs into rows of cobalt points, and the octopus spreads its glowing arms wide in the dark like a small illuminated net. Drawn toward the gentle lights, tiny shrimp swim in among the arms, mistaking the glow for something safe, and the octopus closes around them. A hunter that has turned its own grasping limbs into a constellation, fishing with light where most of its kind fish with stealth. To imagine it, hanging in the black with arms outspread and glowing, is to see how endlessly the deep reworks the same few tools into new and stranger forms. And one of the deep's most unusual creatures uses light not to lure or to flee, but simply to be left in peace. On the seafloor and in the dark water above it, some creatures escape by giving up a glowing piece of themselves. Certain brittle stars, the slender, many-armed cousins of the starfish, can light their arms with a cobalt glow, and when one is seized it may simply cast off the glowing arm and slip away, leaving the bright wriggling limb behind to hold the hunter's attention, while the rest of the animal slides away into the dark. The lost arm glows on for a while, then slowly regrows, good as new. Some deep-sea cucumbers do something similar, shedding small luminous patches of their own skin that float away glowing, decoys of living light set loose to cover an escape. There is a strange gentleness in surviving this way, parting with a glowing piece of oneself and trusting it to do the rest, then growing whole again in the dark. And one small worm of the deep has carried this trick further than almost any other, turning pieces of its own body into little glowing bombs. Far down in the cold black water, between 1 and 4 kilometers below the waves, swims a small, nearly see-through worm that wears a ring of glowing green orbs around its head, and when a hunter draws near, it flings them away. Each orb is a modified gill that has slowly changed across long ages into a detachable globe of light, and the worm can cast one off into the water where it flashes a vivid green and goes on burning for several seconds while the worm itself swims clear. Scientists who first met this creature named it the green bomber, for the way it scatters these little luminous grenades behind it as it flees. Young and grown alike carry the glowing bombs, which makes it plain they are meant for escape and not for courtship. A handful of green sparks thrown into the dark to buy a single life its freedom. To picture that small pale worm trailing a scatter of glowing green spheres through the black is to glimpse one more way the deep has turned light into a tool for slipping away unseen. And a far stranger swimmer of the deep wears its escape light not in thrown spheres, but across the whole surface of its body. Deeper than 2 kilometers down, a creature shaped like a translucent bell with a fringe of veils paddles slowly through the dark, swimming up off the seafloor to find new feeding grounds. This is a sea cucumber that learned to swim, though for most of its kind, a sea cucumber is a slow crawler of the bottom mud, and divers who have glimpsed it on camera have given it odd, affectionate names for its peculiar shape. When something brushes against it, its skin lights up at the touch, glowing from the tips of its tentacles and the small feet along its body, and if it is truly alarmed, it can shed a patch of that glowing skin into the water, leaving the bright scrap behind to confuse a hunter, while the rest of it paddles away into the dark. The lost skin then grows back, ready to glow again, to imagine a clear, veil-finned creature rowing slowly through the deepest water, lighting up wherever it is touched and able to peel away its own glow as a decoy, is to see how thoroughly even the gentlest bottom dwellers have been shaped by living light. And one creature of the deep, neither quite squid nor quite octopus, lives in the dim, oxygen-poor water deeper than most of its relatives can go, moving slowly and spending little energy. When it is disturbed, it does not dart away, for it lives where there is too little oxygen to fuel a chase. Instead, it curls its webbed arms back over its body like a cloak turned inside out, and the tips of its arms glow with cool blue lights, a calm display meant to startle and confuse rather than to fight. It can also release a cloud of glowing mucus full of tiny lights, drifting in place while a predator is dazzled. Everything about this creature is slow and economical, a life lived gently in the cold dark, defending itself with light rather than effort. There is a deep peace in that, a creature that has given up the frantic struggle of the upper sea and learned to hang still, to glow, and to wait. The light of these countless creatures has, in our own age, become one of the most powerful tools in all of science, and the story of how begins with a small jellyfish. Off the cool northwestern coast of North America drifts a pale, translucent jelly whose rim glows green when it is touched, and decades ago researchers set out to learn how. What they found inside it was a remarkable protein that glows green all on its own when struck by blue light, needing nothing else. A tiny self-contained lamp folded into the jelly's tissues. It seemed at first a small curiosity, a single glowing molecule from a single floating creature. But that green glowing protein would go on to transform the way we see the living world, all because one scientist wondered why a jellyfish shone. The greatest discoveries so often begin with the gentlest question, asked of the smallest thing. And that one green protein became a light we could shine inside life itself. That green fluorescent protein turned out to be a kind of master key. Because it glows on its own and harms nothing, scientists learned to attach its glowing instructions to almost any other living part they wished to watch, so that a chosen protein, a single cell, a growing nerve, would light up green and reveal itself under the microscope. Suddenly the invisible machinery of life could be seen at work, glowing softly in real time. Brain cells lit one by one in different colours, the spread of life and growth made visible as a green shine. A jellyfish's gentle glow became a window into the body's deepest secrets, and the discovery was honoured with the highest prize in science. To think that a small glow in the sea, made for reasons of its own, would one day let you watch the very threads of life light up, is to feel how deeply all of this is connected. With this gentle green glow, researchers have followed the growth of a single nerve, watched a healing wound knit itself closed, traced the slow spread of cells through a living body, and lit up the inner workings of the brain in a shimmer of separate colours, each cell its own faint shade. Things that were always hidden, unfolding deeper than any eye can follow, could at last be seen simply by making them glow. The light a creature makes for itself can become a light by which we understand everything. And the firefly too lent its glow to that same revolution. That same small glowing jelly gave science a second gift, a glowing molecule that lights up in answer to a single small signal of life. Alongside its green protein, the jelly carries a light-making molecule that shines only when a particular tiny messenger appears, a flicker of the very substance cells use to pass their faintest instructions to one another. Scientists learn to slip this glowing helper inside living cells, where it stays dark and patient until that messenger arrives, and then it sparks, lighting up the precise moment a cell stirs to action. Through that borrowed glow, researchers watch the inner signals of the heart and the nerves flash into view. The language of living cells made suddenly visible as small points of light. A jelly's gentle glow became a way to see the smallest whispers inside the body, a lamp lit by the very pulse of life. It is a quiet wonder that so much understanding should flow from one faint light drifting in the sea. The chemistry of the firefly's lantern has its own remarkable second life in the laboratory. The firefly's light depends on a fuel that every living cell on Earth uses for energy, so the brighter the firefly glows, the more of that fuel must be present, and scientists realized they could read living things by their light. Today the firefly's glowing chemistry is used to detect that energy molecule in the tiniest amounts, lighting up to reveal whether a surface is clean, whether cells are alive, whether the smallest trace of life is present where none should be. A glow borrowed from a summer insect now helps keep food safe and watches over the health of living cells, all by shining brighter where life is busiest. The same cold light that drifts over a meadow at dusk has become one of our gentlest ways of asking, is anything alive here? Inspectors brush a surface and add a drop of the firefly's mixture, and if the faintest trace of life is present, the drop glows, brighter where there is more, a luminous green yes answering out of the dark. The same simple test has even been carried beyond our world in the dream of searching distant places for life, the thought being that wherever there is living energy, the firefly's chemistry might flicker in reply. There is a lovely symmetry in that. The firefly's romance turned into a quiet question we can shine into the dark. And from these borrowed glows, dreamers have begun to imagine lighting the world itself. With the secrets of living light laid open, some scientists have begun to wonder whether the glow might be grown rather than built. Already, plants have been gently coaxed into glowing softly in the dark, their leaves carrying the same chemistry that lights a mushroom or a firefly, shining a faint green from within without any electric current at all. The dream is of gardens that glow at night, of living lamps that need no wires, of trees that might one day line a street with a gentle inner light. It is still a young and tender idea, these first faintly glowing plants no brighter than the foxfire on a forest log. But it carries an old, deep wish, to light our nights not with fire or current, but with the same cool green glow that life has been making, all by itself, for ages beyond counting. To picture a softly glowing garden is to picture the gentlest possible light, grown from the same patient chemistry that fills the sea and the forest with stars. The gentlest of these glowing plants borrow their light from the very mushrooms that shine on forest logs, carrying the fungus's own quiet green glow within their leaves and stems, so that a whole plant shimmers faintly from root to flower in the dark. The light is faint, no brighter than starlight, enough to see the plant's own outline but not to read by, a living nightlight grown rather than made. To imagine a windowsill holding a plant that glows by itself through the night, needing only water and care, is to glimpse a future lit by the same gentle radiance that has glowed in the wild since long before us. To understand why all this light is so cool and so kind to the eye, it helps to know what it is not. The glow of living things is chemiluminescence, light born straight from a chemical reaction, and it is quite different from the warm light of fire or the steady light of a lamp. It is also distinct from phosphorescence, the kind of glow a star-shaped sticker holds after the lights go out, slowly releasing light it soaked up earlier. Living light makes its glow fresh, in the moment, from energy traded between molecules, releasing it almost entirely as light and almost not at all as heat. That is why a firefly's lantern is cool to the touch, why glowing water does not warm your hand, why a luminous mushroom never scorches the wood it grows on. It is the gentlest light there is, made without burning, given without warmth, a brightness that asks for no fuel but a quiet chemical breath. There is deep comfort in a light that cannot burn, and that light needs only one simple thing from the world around it to shine. Almost every living light shares one quiet requirement, a breath of oxygen. The glowing reaction, in nearly all its forms, needs oxygen to complete itself, the same air that you are breathing slowly in and out as you rest. When a creature wishes to glow, it lets its light-making molecules meet oxygen, and the glow appears. When it wishes to go dark, it can simply hold that meeting back. This is part of how a firefly blinks and a flashlight fish flickers, controlling the glow by controlling the breath of air that feeds it. There is something quietly beautiful in knowing that the same oxygen filling your lungs right now is the very thing that lets a firefly shine. A deep chemical kinship between your slow breathing and the light of every glowing creature in the world. Each small glow out there is, in its way, a kind of breath made visible. And this link between living light and the air was the very first thing anyone ever proved about the glow, more than 300 years ago. Long before anyone knew of oxygen, a curious experimenter in England set a piece of glowing wood and a few shining scraps of fish inside a glass chamber and slowly pumped out the air. As the chamber emptied, the glow faded and went dark. When the air was let back in, the light returned. From this he understood that the cold light of the living things depends on something in the air, the same something we now know, that you are breathing in and out this very moment. He could not yet name it, but he had found the first rule of all this glow: no air, no light. It was later understood that the wood itself does not glow at all, that the light came from threads of fungus living within it, but the lesson held true all the same. To think that the glow of rotten wood, set in a glass jar 3 centuries ago, first taught us that living light breathes as we do, is to feel how long and patient the wandering has been, and the sea holds one more layer of glowing life, down where the seafloor itself begins. On the deep ocean bottom, where no light has ever fallen from above, pale corals and delicate sea fans can glow when they are brushed in the dark, sending slow waves of light along their branches. These deep corals build gardens in the cold black water, fragile and ancient and unseen, and many of them carry the same luminous chemistry as the sea pansy we met in the shallows, lighting up in response to touch. A current sweeps through, a creature passes, and the coral answers with a slow pulse of light running through its branches like a thought. Whole gardens of these glowing corals stand on the dark seafloor, lighting up to no audience but the rare passing creature, blooming with light in a place that has never known the sun. To imagine those silent, luminous gardens, glowing softly in the deepest dark, is to feel how thoroughly this living light has reached into every corner of the world. These deep gardens grow with a patience that beggars belief, some of the corals adding only the thinnest sliver of growth in a year, so that a single glowing branch the length of your arm may be older than the oldest tree, older than many a human city, its cold light shining the whole while in a dark no eye ever visits. To stand, in the mind, before such an ancient luminous garden is to feel time slow, almost to stillness, the glow unchanged across centuries. Nothing seems too deep, too cold, or too dark for life to fill it with a gentle glow. Even the largest glowing creature in the sea hides in that same cold dark. Among the sharks that drift through the deep twilight, there are kinds whose bellies glow with a faint blue light, and one of these is the largest luminous creature with a backbone yet known, a slow shark longer than a person that lights its underside as it cruises the dark water. The glow erases its shadow from below, the same patient trick of counter-illumination the small hatchet fish uses, only worked across the body of a great slow shark. It moves unhurried through the cold deep, its pale belly glowing faintly against the dim light far above, vanishing not into shadow, but into a careful balance of light. To think of so large a creature gliding silently through the dark, lit softly from beneath, is to feel the deep grow stranger and more peaceful than any imagining. The biggest glowing things and the smallest both move through the same cool luminous sea, and some of these glowing sharks light only the edges of their fins like a sketch drawn in cool fire. Among the smaller deep-sea sharks, certain kinds carry glowing patches not only along the belly, but tracing the spines and the edges of the fins, outlining the body in faint blue light. One small lantern shark bears tiny glowing markers along the sharp spines of its back, as if to advertise in a light only the dark can read that it is armed and best avoided. Others light the undersides of their fins so precisely that the glow seems to draw the shark in luminous outline, a faint sketch of a creature moving through the black. These sharks are small and gentle and slow, gliding through the deep twilight with their delicate lights, asking only to feed in peace and not be troubled. The deep brims with these understated glows, light used not to dazzle but to whisper, a thin edge of brightness tracing a body through the dark. The forms are endless, and each is fainter than you would expect. One small deep shark uses its glow with a cleverness that turns the trick of hiding inside out. Like many others, it lights its underside to erase its shadow from below, glowing softly all along its belly so that it vanishes into the dim light from above. But just beneath its head it keeps a small dark band that does not glow, a single unlit collar against all that cobalt light, and to a creature looking up, that little dark patch can look exactly like a small fish swimming alone. A larger hunter, rising to seize the tiny silhouette, finds instead the whole glowing shark waiting where the shadow seemed to be. It is a lure made not of light but of the careful absence of it, a dark shape framed by glow, patient in the deep. To turn one's own missing light into bait is a subtlety the dark sea worked out long ago, and there is something almost playful in it, a creature fishing with a shadow. There is a fish that sings in the dark and glows while it sings, hidden along certain shallow coasts. The midshipman fish spends its days buried in mud and sand, and the males have rows of tiny glowing organs along their bodies, neat patterns of light that may have inspired their name, recalling the buttoned uniform of a young sailor. On summer nights the males hum, a deep continuous drone produced by the rapid beating of muscles against their swim bladder, a low love song that can carry up through the water and even into the air. They glow softly and they sing, calling for a mate through the dark shallows with both light and sound at once. To imagine a hidden fish, glowing faintly and humming a steady note beneath the still night water, is to find the sea even fuller of quiet music than you knew. The world is singing and shining in places we rarely think to listen, and the deep too has its quiet performers that light themselves to be admired. Some deep sea creatures seem to wear their light almost as decoration, arranged in patterns too precise to be anything but a kind of display. There are squid in the deep whose bodies are studded with glowing organs of different colours, blue and sometimes other shades, set in careful rows and clusters across the skin, and these patterns may let them signal to one another in the dark, a silent luminous code. A deep squid might flush its lights in waves across its body, dimming here and brightening there, spelling out something silent and luminous across the dark. we can only guess at much of what these signals mean. Watching creatures speak a language of light we're only beginning to read. To picture a squid drifting in the black, its body rippling with patterned light, is to glimpse a whole hidden conversation flowing silently through the deep. The dark sea is far more talkative than it seems, every flash a word, every glow a quiet sentence. Down where the great whales dive to hunt, the deep is alive with a constant cold sparkle that the whales themselves may read. As a sperm whale descends into the black depths to find the squid it feeds on, the water around it is full of tiny glowing creatures that flash at the slightest disturbance, so that a fleeing squid leaves a faint trail of light and a moving body kindles a blue glow in the dark. Some scientists wonder whether deep-diving hunters use this living light to find their way and their prey, reading the sparks the deep gives off as a kind of map drawn in glowing plankton. Whether or not they do, the image is a beautiful one, a great whale gliding through a sea full of tiny lights, each touch of its body waking a blue glow that fades behind it. The largest animals that have ever lived, moving through a darkness sown with living stars. To rest in that thought is to feel the deep ocean open into something vast and gentle and luminous. And the surface of the sea too can light up in ways that look almost like weather. There are nights when the open ocean flickers not in steady glow, but in great rolling flashes, sheets of pale light that sweep across the water like silent lightning low on the sea. These spreading flashes come from vast gatherings of glowing plankton or jellies set off in waves, the disturbance of a current or a passing squall rippling outward and lighting the water in slow pulses to the horizon. From a ship's deck it can look as though the sea itself were quietly breathing light, great pale glimmers rising and fading across miles of dark water. There is no thunder, no storm, only this calm, luminous pulsing, the ocean flickering to itself in the night. To witness such a thing would be to stand at the rail in perfect silence, watching light move across the water like a slow and soundless dream. The sea keeps wonders like these for the patient and the wakeful, glowing softly far from any shore. Some glowing creatures use their light to make themselves look far larger and stranger than they are. When certain deep-sea animals are threatened, they spread glowing parts wide or flash in sudden expanding patterns, so that a small dim body seems for an instant to swell into something bright and looming, enough to make a hunter hesitate. A flash of light in the dark, growing and spreading, can read to a frightened predator as a creature far too big to swallow, and in that moment of doubt the small one escapes. It is a gentle bluff, a trick of light standing in for size and strength, a quiet creature wrapping itself in brightness to seem more than it is. There is something almost endearing in that, a small thing in the dark borrowing the language of a light to say I am bigger than you think. The deep teaches that brightness can be a kind of courage, and that even the smallest creature can hold its own with nothing but a well-timed glow. And light in the deep can serve as a warning as easily as a bluff. Just as the glowing millipede on the mountain and the young firefly in the soil use their light to say keep away, many creatures of the sea glow to advertise that they are unpleasant or dangerous to eat. A steady or sudden light in the dark can be a label, a luminous announcement that a creature carries a sting, a toxin, or a bitter taste, teaching hunters to associate that particular glow with an unhappy meal. Over time, a predator learns to leave the glowing thing alone, and so the light becomes a shield, a brightness that protects by warning rather than by hiding. It is the same quiet logic that paints a wasp in bold stripes, or a poison frog in vivid colour, only written in living light across the dark water. To glow, in these cases, is simply to be honest, to wear one's defence openly so that no one need be harmed. There is a deep calm in that kind of honesty, a light that asks only to be understood and left in peace. The sea even has creatures that catch and wear the light of others, glowing with a brightness they did not make. Some transparent floating animals swallow tiny glowing plankton and let the captured lights shine on inside their see-through bodies, so that the creature glows from within with a borrowed brilliance, lit like a small lantern by the meal it has eaten. Others gather glowing bacteria the way the bobtail squid does, or carry luminous passengers in their skin. The light passes from one life to another, shared and handed onward through the food and the water, so that a single glow may be made by one creature and worn by a second and seen by a third. It is a reminder that in the sea nothing is truly separate, that even light is something creatures lend and borrow and pass along through the dark. To picture a clear-bodied drifter glowing softly with the lights of all it has swallowed is to see how thoroughly this living radiance is woven through every life in the water. The whole ocean shares its light, each creature a small part of one luminous whole. The light of the deep can also be a way of asking very gently to be found. For creatures scattered thin through an enormous dark, finding a mate is one of the hardest tasks of all, and many use their glow to call across the void. A particular pattern of flashes, a special colour, a rhythm of light unique to one kind of creature, drifts out through the black water like a name spoken softly, and somewhere, far off, another of its kind sees and answers. In this way, the vast emptiness of the deep is knit together by light, lonely creatures finding one another across distances too great for any other signal to cross. There is something tender in that. The dark sea full of small lights quietly calling and answering, each glow a way of saying, "Here I am, is anyone there?" To rest in that image is to feel the cold sea grow warm and intimate despite its size, a place where even the most scattered lives reach toward one another with light. No creature in that glowing dark is ever truly alone, and the firefly's flash, back in the summer field, is the very same kind of call. The blink of a firefly over a meadow is a language, and each kind of firefly speaks its own dialect of light. The males fly low through the warm dusk, flashing a particular pattern as they go, a certain number of pulses with a certain spacing, and the females, waiting in the grass below, answer only the pattern that belongs to their own kind. A male flashes his question into the dark, a female returns the matching glow, and across the field 1,000 wordless conversations unfold in light, each pair finding one another by the rhythm of their shining. To us it looks like a scattering of random sparks, but to the fireflies it is a meadow full of names being called and answered, a slow, luminous dialogue rising from the grass. There is a deep gentleness in that, an entire courtship conducted without a sound, written in pale flashes across the summer night. The same patient language of light that fills the deepest sea drifts here over the fields of home, and not every firefly speaks in blinks. In a few shadowed forests, one kind shines with a steady, unbroken light instead. In the damp wooded hollows of the southern Appalachian Mountains lives a firefly that does not flash at all. The males rise just after dark and float low over the leaf litter, each carrying a light that stays lit, a single steady glow held for many long seconds as they glide slowly through the trees. From a little distance that light looks blue-white, an eerie pale blue threading low among the trunks. Though seen up close it is really a soft green, and so they have earned the name blue ghosts. The females, wingless and tiny in the leaves below, answer with a steady shine of their own from a few small points along the body, and the males come down to them. For a few weeks each year the forest floor fills with these slow, blue-white lights, hundreds of them gliding silently a hand's breadth above the ground, and people walk softly among them as among a field of low stars. To watch a glow that simply stays lit, neither blinking nor fading, gliding through the dark woods, is to feel time itself slacken. And some fireflies, far from holding a single steady light, synchronize their flashing not across a whole tree, but along the length of a river or a forest, sending waves of light rolling through the dark. On certain nights in a few special forests, the flashing of countless fireflies sweeps through the trees in great slow ripples, a wave of light rising in one place and travelling outward through the woods as each insect takes its cue from the one beside it. To watch it is to see light move like water, a tide of pale flashes flowing through the dark trees, swelling and fading and swelling again, People gather in such places once a year to witness it, sitting in stillness as the forest breathes with rolling light. There is a profound peace in being among so many small creatures all shining together, a calm that comes from witnessing harmony arise on its own, with no one arranging it. The light of the deep is not only blue, in rare creatures it shades toward green, and that small difference tells a quiet story. Some deep fish and other animals have shifted their glow slightly toward green, often by passing their blue light through a filter inside the body that softens its colour, and this may help the light travel a little differently through the water or be seen more clearly by certain eyes. Green is the colour the foxfire fungus, and many glowworms choose as well, a middle shade between the cool blue of the sea and the warm gold of the firefly. Across all the glowing world, light tends to gather around these gentle colours, blue and green, the very colours of calm water and green leaves. There is something restful in that narrow palette, as though life, given the whole spectrum to choose from, kept reaching for the most soothing colours of all. The glow of the living world is, almost everywhere, the colour of peace, and one small drifting creature carries that gentle light in a way no other does. There is a tiny transparent crustacean of the open sea, a relative of the krill, whose body bears glowing organs as finely made as lanterns, complete with reflectors and lenses. These light organs, scattered along the body, are not simple glowing patches but small optical instruments, each with a curved reflector behind the light to direct it, and a lens before it to focus the glow, so that the creature can aim its cold light precisely downward or outward. It is as though the animal carries a set of tiny living flashlights, each one engineered with the care of a crafted lamp. The krill use this light, like so many others, to erase their shadows from below and vanish into the dim daylight from above. To know that a creature smaller than your fingertip carries lights as carefully built as any lantern is to feel the deep tenderness of the living world's design, the way it pours such craft into the smallest, most easily overlooked of lives. Nothing here is too small to be made beautifully. Vast swarms of these glowing krill gather in the cold seas near the poles, so dense that they can tint the water and feed the greatest creatures alive. Krill gather in clouds so enormous that they are among the most plentiful animals on the planet, and each tiny one carries its small lights, so that a swarm disturbed in the dark can shimmer faintly through the cold water. These swarms are the food of great whales, of seals and penguins and countless fish, the broad base on which much of the ocean's life is built, and they glow softly as they drift. To imagine a cloud of glowing krill stretching for miles through the dark polar sea, shimmering faintly as it moves, feeding the largest animals that have ever lived, is to feel the deep connection running from the smallest light to the greatest life. The glow of the tiniest creatures upholds the whole living sea. There is a vast and gentle order in that, the small lights at the bottom holding up everything above. Light in the sea can also serve as a quiet burglar's confession, marking out a thief in the dark. When some glowing plankton are eaten, they flash brightly inside the very creature that swallowed them, lighting up the predator's body from within and turning it into a beacon visible to larger hunters nearby. A small creature that bites into a mouthful of glowing plankton may suddenly find itself glowing too, its meal betraying its presence to something bigger that now comes to investigate. In this way, the plankton, even as they are eaten, may purchase a kind of revenge, or at least a chance for escape by making their devourer dangerously bright. It is the same gentle strategy as the burglar alarm jelly, only carried inside the body of the thief. Glow, and let the dark deliver justice. There is a quiet poetry in a light that follows its maker even into the belly of another, shining out a warning to the wider sea. The deep is full of these careful balances where even the smallest life has a say. When patient observers lowered cameras into the open mid-ocean and slowly counted the creatures passing, they found something astonishing. In those vast middle waters, roughly 3 out of every 4 animals make their own light. Tally after tally, layer after layer, The glowing creatures outnumbered the dark ones, jellies and fish and tiny drifters all carrying some private lamp. It means that in the largest living space on the planet, glowing is not a rare gift but the ordinary way of things, and a creature that cannot make light is the unusual one. The deep is not a dark exception to a bright world. It is the rule, and most of it shines. To picture those uncounted multitudes of cold lights filling the middle sea, the great majority of all the life faintly luminous, is to feel the planet's true nature settle into place. This is, more than anywhere, a glowing world. Every single night, this glowing multitude of the middle waters makes the largest journey of any animals on the planet. As darkness falls, countless billions of small luminous creatures, the lanterned fish and shrimp and tiny swimmers of the twilight zone, rise together hundreds of meters toward the surface to feed under cover of dark, then sink back down before the dawn can find them. By sheer weight of life, it is the greatest migration on Earth, far larger than any herd crossing any plain, a vast living tide breathing up and down the water column once each day. The animals that take part in it outweigh, many times over, every human being alive, and they make this climb and this descent not once or twice in a lifetime, but every single night, all their lives. To picture that immense slow heave of glowing life, the whole twilight sea moving upward in the dark and settling again by morning, is to feel the planet breathe. And the very deepest dwellers of the open ocean live where bioluminescence is nearly the only light there has ever been, and their whole world is shaped by it. Far down in the midnight depths, beyond the last whisper of sunlight, the creatures that live there have never known any glow but the living kind, and their bodies are built entirely around it. Huge, sensitive eyes to catch the faintest spark, dark or red colouring to hide from the glows of others, and lights of their own for hunting, hiding and calling. To them, the blue flash of a neighbour is sunrise and lamplight and signal fire all at once, the only brightness their world contains, an entire realm where the only light is the light that life itself makes, glowing quietly in the endless black. To picture it is to feel how strange and complete a world can be, lit solely by its own living stars. The deep needs no sun, it has made its own, and that self-made light has been glowing in the sea for an unimaginably long time. Living light is ancient, far older than any lamp or fire, glowing in the seas for hundreds of millions of years before anything walked on land. The chemistry of bioluminescence reaches back deep into the history of life, and some of the creatures that carry it, like the tiny shelled ostracods and certain simple sea animals, belong to lineages older than the dinosaurs by a wide margin. For an almost unthinkable span of time, the dark seas of this world have been faintly sparkling, flashing and glowing long before any eye existed that could be impressed by it, and longer still before any human looked up from a boat in wonder. The blue light breaking on a wave tonight is the same kind of light that lit the ancient oceans of a young and silent earth. Let that thought settle, and time itself grows gentle and vast, the present moment held softly inside an immense glowing past. The tiny shelled creatures whose chemistry first taught us how some of this light is made were drifting and glowing in the sea, while vast reptiles still walked the land, and the continents wore shapes no map would recognise, and they glow on, unchanged in their essentials tonight. There is a deep steadiness in that, a cold light that has outlasted whole ages of the world, asking nothing, simply shining through it all. This light has been keeping the dark company since almost the very beginning, and it took a long time too for the firefly to learn its summer song of light. The fireflies that glow over our fields today are the heirs of a very old lineage, and even their young and their eggs can glow. The light-making gift runs so deep in these insects that it appears at every stage of their lives. The eggs of some fireflies glow faintly in the soil, the larvae carry their steady warning lights, and the adults flash their courtship signals into the dusk. To make light is not something the firefly learns, it is something it has carried from the very start, woven into its body from the egg onward. Picture a clutch of firefly eggs glowing softly in the dark earth. Tiny points of light waiting to hatch into more light, generation after generation, an unbroken line of gentle glow stretching back through countless summers. There is deep comfort in that continuity, a light handed down without pause through the long chain of life, each glowing creature a link to all the glowing creatures that came before. The light goes on, quietly, from one small life to the next. Some of the soft glows in the sea are so faint that they were only discovered when scientists learned to watch the deep in true darkness. Many deep creatures glow so dimly, or so briefly, or in colours so easily lost that for a long time their light went entirely unnoticed, revealed only when researchers brought them carefully into utterly dark rooms and waited, eyes adjusting, cameras straining, for the faint sparks to appear. Each year, new glowing creatures are still being found, faint lamps in the dark that no one had ever seen lit, hidden all along in the unexplored deep. It is a humbling and lovely thought that so much of this living light has been shining quietly for ages with no human ever the wiser, and that the sea still holds glows we have not yet met. The dark is fuller of living light than we will ever fully know. To rest in that mystery is to let the mind grow quiet and open, content not to see everything, happy simply to know the lights are there. The unknown glows on, gentle and patient in the deep. Even the act of measuring all this light has its own quiet beauty, performed in stillness and darkness. To study a creature's glow, scientists sit in lightless rooms with the most sensitive instruments, coaxing a single animal to shine and catching the faint light it gives, counting particles of light almost one by one. It is patient, hushed work, watching for a glow so dim that a single stray spark of light would spoil it, waiting in the dark for a creature to reveal its quiet brightness. There is a gentleness to that kind of science, a slowing down, a sitting in the dark with full attention, asking a small living thing to show its light and receiving it with care. In its own way, it mirrors the calm of this very moment, the dark all around, the attention soft, the mind waiting for whatever faint and lovely thing the night wishes to reveal. To study living light, one must first grow still, and stillness too is what lets the eye finally see the faintest glows of all. The longer the eye rests in darkness, the more living light it can find, until a night that seemed black begins, softly, to glow. When you sit long enough in true dark, your eyes grow more and more sensitive, gathering the faintest light until shapes and glimmers appear that were there all along, unseen. It is the same with the glowing world. The patient watcher, the still swimmer, the quiet walker on a midnight shore is the one who sees the plankton spark, the foxfire shine, the firefly answer from the grass. The light is always there, waiting, but it gives itself only to those who slow down enough to receive it. There is a deep lesson in that, gentle and unhurried, that the most beautiful things often reveal themselves only to stillness, only to patience, only to a quiet and waiting mind. As your own mind grows still now, the soft lights of this glowing world come clearer, one by one, out of the dark. The smallest sparks of all belong to creatures so tiny that a single drop of seawater can hold a glowing multitude. Within one drop of the right ocean water, drawn from a glowing bay on the right night, there may swim thousands of tiny luminous beings, each capable of its own brief flash, an entire galaxy of potential light held in a teardrop. When that drop is stirred, the whole of it can sparkle, a microscopic constellation lighting and fading in the space of a fingertip. It is almost impossible to hold in the mind that so much light, so much life, so much quiet wonder can be gathered in something so small you could lose it between two fingers. The sea is generous beyond all reckoning, packing entire skies of cold light into a single drop. To picture it is to feel the world grow at once enormous and intimate, its grandest glowing displays built from the tiniest of sparks. There is a galaxy in a raindrop of the sea. Light in the deep can travel surprising distances, a single flash carrying its message far through the clear black water. Because the deep sea is so still and so free of the dust and haze that fog the air, a flash of living light there can be seen across a remarkable stretch of water, a small spark visible to a watching eye much farther away than you might expect. A creature need only flash once, briefly, and its signal reaches outward through the clear dark to any eye turned its way, a quiet message crossing the void on a single pulse of light. This is part of why the deep is such a perfect place for a language of light. The water is so clear, the dark so complete, that even the faintest glow carries. To imagine a single faint flash travelling far through that still black water, reaching some distant patient eye, is to feel the deep as a vast quiet hall where light whispers easily from one end to the other. Nothing is wasted. Every glow is heard. Some glowing creatures release their light in a slow, lingering glow rather than a quick flash. A slow radiance that builds and fades over long, gentle moments. Where a firefly blinks and a startled plankton sparks for less than a heartbeat, certain deep creatures glow steadily for many seconds or longer, their light swelling slowly and ebbing slowly away, like a breath held and released across a long, calm pause. These slow glows are the most restful of all to imagine. A gentle brightening and dimming with no urgency in it. A light that takes its time. To watch one would be to feel your own breathing slow to match it. In as the glow rises, out as it fades, the body sinking deeper with each long, luminous breath. There is a profound peace in a light that is in no hurry, that simply glows and dims and glows again, patient as the tide, and the glow of the living world reaches even into the highest, thinnest air. On rare nights, faint glimmers of living light have been seen rising above the sea itself, carried on the spray. When the glowing water is whipped into mist by wind and breaking waves, the tiny luminous plankton can be flung into the air with the spray, so that for an instant the very air above a stormy glowing sea seems to shimmer faintly, a fine luminous mist hanging over the water. It is a fleeting, delicate thing, this glow lifted briefly out of the sea and into the wind, a few sparks of ocean light glinting where light has no business being. To glimpse it would be to see the boundary between sea and sky go soft, the glowing water reaching upward in a faint shining haze before settling back. The living light spills out of every container we imagine for it, into the soil, into the air, into the highest spray of the waves. It will not be confined, it glows wherever life can carry it. The mind too can drift now beyond its usual edges, soft and luminous and free. And there are creatures whose entire bodies are nearly invisible but for their light. Many of the open ocean's drifters are so transparent that, in the dark, they are nothing but their glow, a soft light moving through the water with no visible body at all. Glassy jellies, see-through worms, clear body crustaceans, all are so perfectly transparent that when they light up, only the light can be seen. A pattern of cold glow moving through the black with no creature apparent around it. To a watcher in the deep dark, these animals appear as pure light, a shape of glow with nothing holding it, gliding silently past. There is something dreamlike in that, light without an obvious source, brightness floating free in the water, the body that makes it dissolved entirely into the dark. It blurs the line between the creature and its glow until the two seem one, a living light that simply is, untethered and serene. To picture such a thing is to let go of the need for solid shapes, to rest in a softer world where light and life flow together. The patterns of light a creature wears can be as unique and recognizable as a face, a constellation it carries through life. Across the glowing world, many animals bear their lights in precise particular arrangements, rows and clusters and spirals that mark out their kind as surely as any name, so that in the dark a creature can know friend from stranger, mate from rival, by the exact pattern of glow before it. No two kinds wear quite the same constellation, and so the deep becomes a place of countless luminous signatures, each species writing its identity in living stars across its own dark body. To imagine recognizing a friend not by a face but by a pattern of gentle lights is to glimpse how differently the deep sees, how thoroughly it has turned brightness into meaning. Every glow is a word, every pattern a name, the whole dark sea legible to those who carry the right eyes. There is a deep order in that, a vast hidden language of light, calm and complete. Even colour can be a private channel, a glow tuned to be seen by some and missed by others. You have drifted past the red light of the dragonfish and the red lures of the deep, colours hidden from nearly every eye in the sea, but the principle runs throughout the glowing world. By choosing a particular shade of light, a creature can speak to exactly whom it wishes, and stay silent to the rest. A glow that one creature sees clearly may be invisible to another, whose eyes are tuned to a different colour, so that two animals may share the same dark water, yet live in entirely different worlds of light. It is as though each creature wears tinted glasses, seeing only the glows meant for its own eyes, blind to the rest. There is a gentle solitude in that, and a gentle intimacy too, lights exchanged in private across a crowded dark, messages passing unseen between those who share the right colour of sight. The deep is full of these quiet, hidden conversations, glowing softly past one another in colours no single eye can fully hold. Some creatures can change the colour or the pattern of their light, shifting their glow as their needs change through the night. A few glowing animals are not fixed to a single colour or display, but can soften or brighten their light, or alter the pattern of which lights shine, adjusting their glow to hide, to signal, or to match the changing light around them. A fish lighting its belly to vanish from below must brighten as the daylight strengthens and dim as it fades, forever tuning its glow to the water overhead. Others may flush different patterns for courting and for warning, switching their luminous message as the moment asks. To imagine a creature gently dialing its own light up and down, choosing its glow from moment to moment, is to see how alive and responsive this brightness is, never merely on or off but flowing and shifting like a quiet mood. The light breathes with the creature, soft and changeable as a thought. The mind too can soften and shift now, dimming toward rest. There is nothing more to brighten for tonight. The glow of the deep has shaped not only the bodies of its creatures, but the very eyes through which they see the world. Down in the dark, where the only light is the living kind, eyes have grown enormous and exquisitely sensitive, some creatures devoting a great share of their bodies to vision, all to catch the faintest possible spark. Certain deep fish have tube-shaped eyes pointed upward to catch the dimmest glow from above, and others have eyes so large and dark they seem to drink in every stray particle of light. These are eyes built entirely for living light, tuned across countless ages to the faint flashes and pale glows that are their world's only brightness. To imagine such an eye, vast and dark and patient, opened wide in the endless deep to catch a single distant spark, is to feel how completely this glow has become the centre of life down there. The light made the eye, and the eye lives for the light, the two bound together in the dark. There is a deep wholeness in that, a world perfectly fitted to its own cold glow. For all its uses, much of the deep's light may simply startle, a sudden brightness that buys a creature a single precious moment. When a still, dark world is interrupted by an unexpected flash, even a hunter is given pause, its eyes briefly dazzled, its attention thrown, and in that small, startled instant the flashing creature is already gone. So much of living light comes down to this gentle surprise, a quick bright shock in the deep dark that confuses just long enough to allow escape. It need not frighten or harm, it need only interrupt, only break the smooth dark for a heartbeat. There is something almost playful in that, the deep full of small creatures armed with nothing but the ability to surprise, flashing once and vanishing into the black. A light that protects not by force, but by a moment's gentle astonishment. To rest in that thought is to find the dangerous-seeming deep softer and kinder than it first appears, its creatures defending themselves with little more than a quiet spark. The flashing of the deep can also work the way a school of bright fish does, dazzling a hunter with too many lights at once. When a group of glowing creatures all flash together at the moment of danger, the sudden burst of many lights can overwhelm a predator, making it impossible to fix on any single target in the confusion of light. Where one flash might draw an eye, 100 flashes scatter it, and in that bright bewilderment the whole group slips away into the dark. It is a defense built on togetherness, each creature's glow protecting all the others, the safety of the many woven out of shared light. To imagine a cloud of small creatures bursting into light all at once, then vanishing as the dark returns, leaving a hunter blinking at nothing, is to see how the deep turns even fear into something luminous and shared. No one shines alone in that moment. All shine together, and all are saved by the brightness of the rest. There is deep comfort in that, a light that is also a kind of belonging. The glowing world even reaches into the still pools and caves of the land, where rare creatures light the dark, fresh water. In a few hidden places, certain freshwater snails and other small creatures have been found to glow, lighting the dark of a cave stream or a quiet pool with the same cold luminescence that fills the sea. These are rare and gentle lights, far from the great glowing oceans, small lamps shining in the hushed dark of underground waters where almost nothing else stirs. To come upon a faint glow in a silent cave pool, a faint light moving slowly through black water deep beneath the earth, would feel like discovering a secret the world had kept hidden in its quietest corner. The living light is everywhere life can reach, even into the stillest, darkest, most forgotten waters, glowing patiently with no one to admire it. There is a deep peace in a light that shines for its own quiet reasons, far from any eye, deep in the silent dark. Some creatures glow most brightly in the moments around the full and new moon, keeping a calendar of light. Certain glowing animals time their displays to the phases of the moon, gathering and flashing in great numbers on particular nights each month, as though the moon itself called them forth. The courting ostracods of the warm reefs rise to dance a few nights after the moon is full. Certain glowing worms swarm to the surface on their own appointed nights, lighting the water in a brief, brilliant gathering, then sinking back into the dark. These creatures carry the rhythm of the moon inside them, glowing in time with the slow turning of the lunar month, their light a kind of living tide. To imagine a sea that lights up on schedule with the faces of the moon, glowing brightest on certain nights and resting between, is to feel the deep connection between the smallest creatures and the great slow rhythms of the sky. The moon pulls the tides, and it seems to pull the living light as well. The light of the firefly has been quietly admired and gathered by people for a very long time. Across many lands and many ages, people have caught fireflies to light a moment of the dark, cupping them in their hands or gathering them in jars to make a living lantern, a glow to read by or simply to wonder at. In some places they were once collected and kept gently to brighten a summer evening, their cool light filling a small glass with a pulsing green glow before they were set free again into the night. There is a deep and simple tenderness in that, the wish to hold a little of the living light close, to be near its gentle glow, to carry a piece of the glowing night indoors for a while. The firefly has lit human evenings with quiet delight for longer than we can easily remember, asking nothing, giving only its soft and harmless glow. To picture a jar of fireflies glowing softly on a windowsill, then open to let the light spill back out into the dark, is to feel the old, gentle bond between people and the living light. The glowing sea has guided and comforted travellers across the dark water for as long as people have sailed. Sailors through the ages have watched the wake of their ships light up in glowing blue at night, the disturbed water sparkling behind them across the dark sea, a faint luminous trail marking their passage through the deep. Some told of bright glowing patches on the water, of fish leaving streaks of light as they fled, of the whole sea shimmering on certain calm nights far from any land. These glowing waters were a wonder and sometimes a comfort, a faint light in the loneliness of a long night voyage, the dark sea shining as if to keep the sailors company. To imagine standing at the stern of an old ship in the deep night, watching the glowing wake unspool behind you across the black water, is to share in a wonder that has soothed travellers for countless generations. The sea has always offered this gentle light to those who cross it in the dark, a faithful companion glowing in the wake. Even the falling of glowing creatures through the deep, sinking slowly down toward the sea floor, can fill the dark with cold light. In the deep ocean, a constant slow snow of tiny particles and small dead creatures falls endlessly downward, and some of what falls still carries a faint glow, so that the descending fall can shimmer faintly as it sinks through the dark water toward the bottom far below. It is a slow, quiet falling, this gentle rain of the deep, and where it glows it lights the descent with faint scattered sparks, a luminous snow settling through the black. Creatures of the deep feed on this slow falling rain, and some may follow its faint glow downward through the dark. To imagine that soft luminous snow falling slowly and endlessly through the deep sea, glowing faintly as it sinks, is one of the most peaceful pictures the ocean offers. Everything sinks downward there, slow and unhurried and softly lit, settling at last into the quiet dark. The living radiance of the world has long crept into our stories and our dreams, lighting the imagined dark. People who never understood where the light came from still wove it into their tales, telling of glowing spirits in the marsh, of fairy lights flickering over the bog, of strange pale glows seen in the woods and on the water at night. The faint light of foxfire, of glowing fungi, of marsh gas and floating plankton, became in the telling something magical and alive, a gentle mystery glowing at the edge of the known world. There is something fitting in that, for the truth is no less wondrous than the legends, a world that makes its own light all its own, glowing softly in the dark for reasons all its own. The living light has always lived at the meeting place of wonder and the dark, lighting both our forests and our imaginations. To rest in its glow is to rest in that old, deep sense of magic, the cool mystery of a light with no obvious source, shining faintly in the night. The living lights of the sea can sometimes outline a creature so perfectly that it glows like a drawing of itself in the dark. When a transparent or pale animal lights up against the black water, its glow can trace its whole shape at once, every fin and feeler and curve illuminated in cold light, so that the creature appears as a luminous sketch hanging in the deep. It is as though the dark had drawn the animal in gentle light, every line of it glowing softly. The body and its brightness become a single shining form. To imagine such a thing, a creature outlined entirely in cold glow, gliding slowly through the black like a living illustration, is to feel the deep grow strange and beautiful beyond easy words. The sea makes art of its creatures in the dark, lighting them from within until they seem less like animals than like pale, luminous dreams. There is a deep stillness in that image, a gentle glowing shape adrift in endless dark asking nothing, simply shining. The glow of living things has even helped us understand the workings of the smallest parts of life, lighting up processes too tiny to see. By borrowing the glowing molecules of jellyfish and fireflies and bacteria, scientists have learned to make the invisible visible, lighting up a single working cell, a single active gene, a single moving particle within a living body, so that the deepest, smallest machinery of life glows green for us to watch. Processes that unfold far below the reach of any ordinary sight can be tagged with living light and seen to flicker and shine, revealing how life builds and repairs and signals within itself. It is a marvel that the cold glow a creature makes for its own purposes in the dark sea should become the very light by which we glimpse the hidden, inner life of all living things. The light of the deep has illuminated the deep within us as well. Resting in that idea, you can sense how gently all of life is connected, each glow a thread linking creature to creature, the firefly's lantern lighting our understanding of ourselves. The simplest glowing creatures of all, maybe the bacteria, and yet their light carries one of the deepest lessons in the living world. A single glowing bacterium is among the smallest and simplest of living things, and on its own it stays dark, useless to itself and to anyone. Only together, in their countless millions, do the bacteria shine, their light an achievement not of any one cell but of the whole gathered community acting as one. There is profound gentleness in that truth, that the light belongs to the many and not the one, that brightness here is something only togetherness can make. The glow of the bobtail squid's lantern, the shimmer of a milky sea, the cold light of so much of the ocean, all of it rests on the simplest creatures choosing in their wordless way to shine in unison. Let yourself rest there, and you may feel held by something larger than any single life. A soft light made of multitudes, glowing because so many small things are gathered close. You are held that way too tonight, by the quiet company of an entire glowing world. The glow of the deep is, in the end, a kind of quiet conversation that has been going on in the dark for longer than the mind can hold. Across the vast black water, creatures have been flashing and glowing and answering one another for hundreds of millions of years, a luminous dialogue older than the hills, carried on in living light beneath the waves while the world above changed and changed again. Mates have called and been answered, hunters have lured and prey have escaped. Whole communities have shone together, all in a language of gentle light spoken in the dark. It goes on tonight, far out under the sea, in the deep cold water and on the breaking waves, countless cold lights flashing and fading in a conversation that has never once stopped. Allow that to wash over you, and you become a small quiet part of something vast and ancient and softly glowing, the whole dark sea murmuring in light beneath the night. The conversation needs nothing from you. You have only to listen and rest and let its soft glow carry you down. Your limbs feel heavy and warm, the breathing long and unhurried, the thoughts loosening their hold and floating free on a tide of quiet light. Now, as the night grows deepest and the soft lights gather one last time, there comes the gentlest wonder of all, the one that quietly holds all the others. For all the ways living things make light, in firefly and fish and fungus and tiny drifting plankton, the glow itself is the same simple thing everywhere, a single molecule lifted by a quiet chemical breath into a moment of excitement, sinking back to calm and releasing as it settles, one small faint particle of light. Every spark over the summer field, every blue flash on the dark wave, every glowing lantern in the deep is, at its heart, this same gentle act repeated countless times, a molecule briefly stirred and then returning peacefully to rest, giving off light in the very moment it lets go. The whole glowing world, the entire luminous sea, every living lamp that has ever shone, is built of nothing but that, the cold light of countless small things relaxing back into stillness. There is something deeply beautiful in that all this light is made not by effort but by release, not by holding on but by letting go. The glow comes in the settling, the brightness in the calm. The firefly does not strain to shine, it simply lets its light come as easily as a breath let out. And so, perhaps can you. To make this soft and lovely light, a molecule has only to be gently stirred and then to relax, and in that relaxing it glows. Let your own body be that simple now. There is no effort left to make, nothing to hold, nothing to chase. Like all the soft lights of the world, you have only to settle and rest, and let your own quiet glow drift down into the dark. The journey through this glowing world is complete now. All its soft lights met and gathered. Every spark and flash and gentle radiance drifted through your awareness like a long, calm tide. And if you're still here, resting in the dark, another quiet journey is already waiting for you on the screen, ready whenever you wish it, or never at all. There is nothing you need to do but stay exactly where you are, soft and warm and still. You do not need to hold on to any of these lights. You do not need to remember a single name or carry any fact down with you into sleep. Let them go now, all of them, the way a wave lets go of its glow and slides back dark into the sea. What was meant to stay will stay, settling somewhere in you without any effort at all. What drifts away has only gone back into the dark, where all this soft light comes from and returns. There is nothing left to learn tonight, nothing left to picture, nothing left to do. Feel the weight of your body now, heavy and held, sinking gently into the soft dark beneath you, like a creature settling slowly toward the quiet floor of the sea. The lights are dimming, one by one, the firefly's lantern, the glowing wave, the soft lamps of the deep, all of them fading slowly down. Your breath is slow, your thoughts are slow. The dark is warm and kind. Let the last soft glows drift away. Let the field go quiet. Let the sea go still. The night is dark, and you're safe within it. Everything is at rest. There's nothing to reach for, nothing to find. You're held softly in the gentle dark. Let yourself drift. Let yourself sink. Let yourself sleep. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.